Chapter 60, The Last Day of School. Although he had benefited from the inverted energy flow from the leakless fruit, Zhang Tai was still not able to recover from losing a large amount of blood after just one night of rest. On Friday, his biological clock, which would usually wake him at 6 a.m., was late, thus on that day, he did not wake up until it was almost 8 a.m. Whatever, it felt much better than yesterday. At the very least, Zhang Tai's face was not as pale as yesterday. Although he was still weak, he could stand it. It felt like he had made several wet dreams overnight. What the F***ck? Who said bleeding was beneficial to health? Thinking back to those liars on the streets of Black Hot City who encouraged passers-by to donate blood for the sake of health, Zhang Tai became really furious. Blood was the energy essence of the human body. How could people become healthier without blood? If anyone else delivered such a leaflet to Zhang Tai, he would definitely spit on his face. Those liars sold your blood for money while telling you that bleeding was beneficial for your metabolism and the recovery of your stem cells. Mother*****. Since he had gotten up so late this morning, Zhang Tai was almost late for the last day of school. In addition, the way his mom gave him a strange look simply made him feel embarrassed. He remembered that Miss Dana had once said that when one lost too much blood due to some incident, they should eat sugar and protein to recovery quicker. Hence, Zhang Tai, who was always frugal in the past few years, bought himself the most luxurious breakfast that he has ever eaten, costing him more than 50 copper coins, a carton of milk and 2 eggs. Thus, Zhang Tai felt really depressed about the money he had spent. However, by the time he arrived at school, he felt like he had recovered quicker both physically and mentally. Barley must have already shared what he had experienced last night with the other members of the Hit Plane Brotherhood. As Zhang Tai expected, the instant he entered the classroom, the other horny members of the Hit Plane Brother burst out into laughter. "Bro, just tell us what's making you so unhappy. We'll make you happy." Just as Zhang Tai expected, Histo was the first to ask. If it was the day before yesterday, Zhang Tai definitely would have felt frustrated and irritated. However, after surviving last night's ordeal and taking 2 lives, Zhang Tai's way of thinking became completely different. Facing Histo's ridicule, Zhang Tai simply smiled. "As you know, I'm still a virgin. Are you satisfied now?" Zhang Tai's response surprised everybody. Everyone thought that Zhang Tai must have suffered a serious blow and was somewhat depressed. Seeing Zhang Tai's look, Hista comforted him. "Never mind, I know a good clinic. It's just a small operation. It will take you just 1 or 2 weeks to recover after the operation. If it wasn't for the upcoming survival training, I would personally take you there. The operation only costs a bit more than 60 silver coins, and we currently don't have enough money, so Barley already had a talk with us. We have all decided to save some money for you. We will take this survival training as an opportunity, and perhaps we can get something valuable." "That's right, we will never let you drag us down. If there is a virgin in our brotherhood, it would really make us lose face." Hearing their words, Zhang Tai felt warm inside. These cute bastards. Speaking of money, Zhang Tai suddenly thought of the 2 dead bodies in the castle of Black Iron. The 2 of them seemed to have a lot of money. He was trying his best to survive last night and was extremely spent both physically and mentally, hence, after returning home, he simply ate something and went to bed. He had almost forgotten about their money. Thinking of the pile of gold in Snade's purse, Zhang Tai immediately became spirited. He could not wait to go back home and search through the 2 dead bodies. They might even have something more valuable. "I'm rich. I'm really rich this time." On their last day of school, they only had morning classes. After gathering all the undergraduates, the school staff reiterated the dangers and the solemnity of this survival training and delicately repeated the basic necessities that needed to be brought with them. Afterwards, all the undergraduates left school. All of them had 2.5 days to prepare for the things requested. According to the school, every undergraduate should at the very least prepare the following things: a weapon, a sleeping bag, and 5 days' worth of food. They could bring along a raincoat if their family could afford it. With the exception of extra food, they could pretty much bring whatever they wanted, assuming they were able to bring it along. Additionally, this year, undergraduates from 4 middle schools will be taking part in the survival training in the Wild Wolf Valley, which was 70 kilometers west of Black Hot City. This was their final chance to show off their abilities. Those who performed the best during the survival training might even receive a recommendation from their school, giving them a chance to change their fates. As it would be their last lunch at the school prepared 2 spoons of meat for each undergraduate, which they had really enjoyed. After finishing lunch, Zhang Tai felt that he had recovered about 70% of his physical and mental strength. After lunch, everybody was busy seizing the last chance to take photos. Although it was expensive to take a photo, a great amount of people still chose to take photos on this very day. Hence, the photo studios outside the school gate made a lot of money today. The photographers were extremely busy, and the powdered magnesium flashed and puffed here and there on the school campus. Standing to the side, the lower grade students were admiring them. They didn't understand that that photo might be the last trace of those horny undergraduates in the world. Besides making love, one should leave something behind to show others that they had existed in this secular world. For many of the horny students, ending one's virgin status and taking a photo before the beginning of their survival training had almost become a ceremony. The 7 members of the Hit Plane Brotherhood also took a photo together. In front of the school gate, they stood in a line against the wall that said "Welcome to the Age of Black Iron." On the farthest left was Baghdad, who was crossing his arms coolly, showing his developed muscles. Next to him was Leet, whose hair was shining, giving him a look of a mature man. Then there was Charwin, who gave a bashful smile, and Doug, who had one of his arms wrapping around Fatty Barley's neck. As for Barley, the one who was asked to pay for the photo, he forced a smile although he was miserable inside. Like an idiot, Hista made a hand posture in the form of V. Standing on the rightmost position was Zhang Tai, who was somewhat sad and frustrated as he gave off a stiff appearance. The only thing in his mind at the moment was that he would rarely have the opportunity to see Miss Dana from this point on. With a dazzling flash and a sound of bang, a puff of magnesium powder started to rise up. Everybody's youth and shadow were set fixed. In the next 2 days, we should prepare well. Bring as many useful things as you can. In addition, we should stay together during the survival training. That way, we could look after each other during critical situations. The moment to test the unity of our brotherhood is coming. Barley suggested to the other members of the brotherhood before they left school. I will bring a first aid kit, a bow, and some medicine for curing wounds. As for the others, each of us should bring as much as possible. A bow? You really have a rich dad. Charwin was surprised while everybody else, including Zhang Tai, was staring at Barley in admiration. No way. If I kick the bucket this time, there will be nobody to help him through his old age. He prepared the bow for me since he was even more nervous than me, Barley shrugged. All right, brothers, it's time to fight. See you next Monday. Okay, see you next Monday. See you next Monday. A group of horny students departed outside the school gate and walked in all directions. Big Head, take care. I found that Glaze's group has been too low-key recently. I feel that there's something wrong and am somewhat curious about what they're doing. Barley warned Zhang Tai in a low voice before leaving. Don't worry. Zhang Tai patted Barley's shoulder and gave him a sincere smile. He was probably worried that Glaze's group would take revenge for what had happened 2 days ago. However, after what had happened last night, Zhang Tai didn't take Glaze's affair seriously in the least. Barley scratched his head as he said, I don't know why, but I feel like you are completely different than yesterday. Haha, I have really suffered a blow from yesterday's incident. It seems that I have to think things through. Zhang Tai prattled. Is that true? Barley glanced at Zhang Tai dubiously. Whatever, take care of yourself. All right, I will. Separating from Barley, Zhang Tai arrived at the Iron Thorns Fighting Club. Today, he would be a flesh bag here again and would also receive his salary. Starting from next week, he would have to attend the survival training, and thus he would not be able to come here. Therefore, he had to ask for a leave from Director Huck. Chapter 61, Luck. It was safe on the way to the fighting club. When he arrived at the fighting club in the afternoon, there were no guests in the LV-1 service area, hence, Zhang Tai decided to use the special training instruments in the training area, which could not be seen at his school at all, as his body slowly recovered. Zhang Tai had intended to test his physical condition using Feet's special instruments many times to discern the gap between him and Glaze. However, he abstained from doing so in the end. He was worried that it would bring him troubles once the fact that he was a LV-1 fighter was disclosed to the public. Additionally, he had killed 2 people last night and was also involved in an extremely large incident. At this important juncture, he should remain low-key, reminding him of an Eastern proverb that his dad had once told him: exposed rafters will rot first. Glaze was a prime example of the negative consequences mentioned in the proverb. Having realized that there were many secrets hidden within himself, Zhang Tai didn't want to repeat the same mistake that Glaze had, therefore, he was determined to hide his real identity as much as he could. It took God 10,000 years to create an olive tree, but the life of a soybean sprout would end in a week. I want to be an olive tree, Zhang Tai mumbled to himself. As he had been in the fighting club for the entire afternoon, they had even provided him a meal at work in the evening. The meal at work provided for the ordinary staff was really substantial. It was even better than what he had enjoyed today at school for lunch. Suddenly, Zhang Tai realized that he had eaten meat for 3 consecutive meals, which had been a humble dream that he has had ever since he was a child. Without knowing it, his dream was simply realized in one day. Was this the legendary proverb, if one can avoid disaster, one will experience a wonderful blessing after? After finishing the meal provided at work, Zhang Tai felt that he had recovered a bit more. After resting for another hour, Benet finally arrived. As usual, Zhang Tai was being fiercely beaten. However, this time, after having survived the terrifying life and death situation last night, Zhang Tai looked much calmer when facing Benet's attacks. He didn't even feel the slightest bit of nervousness this time and responded much quicker both physically and mentally. Zhang Tai could freely transition between movement and stillness. Having the mental advantage, Zhang Tai hid his physical disadvantage today and stuck it through to the very end. This time, he was neither knocked over nor did he pass out. After another exhausting fight, Zhang Tai and Benet both threw themselves onto the ground as they panted. Seeing Benet's arrogant air, Zhang Tai started to really admire him. Regardless of the kid's family background and his character, Zhang Tai started to like this 12-year-old boy simply because of his unyielding perseverance. Zhang Tai realized that those rich families might not be as extravagant, as arrogant, and as silly as commoners had thought. They must have some extraordinary traits to become wealthy. You are not bad. Sitting on the ground as he drank from the water bottle passed by the kid, the sweat-covered Zhang Tai praised. After a few times, Zhang Tai had learned how to undo the damned head protector. Between him and the kid, there was also a slight understanding. Don't expect me to go easy on you simply because you praised me. The sweat-covered benefit smirked as he gazed at Zhang Tai. I have been immune to this naive trick a long time ago. In order to marry Mary one day, I will definitely defeat you. To me, you are just a stepping stone. Your miserable destiny was predestined. Mother Fastorus Cur. Hearing his words, Zhang Tai wanted to immediately beat him up ruthlessly. After a while, Zhang Tai stood up and glanced at him. I will be attending the survival training next Monday, so you will not see me in the next 2 months. I hope your fighting strength can be as sharp as your mouth when I come back. Don't kick the bucket, otherwise, I would not be able to realize the promise I made with Mary, the kid retorted. The two stared at each other fiercely before Zhang Tai had left. It was not until Zhang Tai had left the training room did Benet start to realize that Zhang Tai had recovered faster than him. Leaving the fighting club, Zhang Tai didn't immediately return home. Instead, he had arrived at Donder's grocery store that was near the railway station. The moment Zhang Tai arrived, Donder, who had been preparing to close the store, caught sight of Zhang Tai and harumphed, seemingly as if he was still complaining about Zhang Tai's verbal assault yesterday. Do old men really care about having their d*ck laughed at? Zhang Tai laughed at Donder's response. Zhang Tai also didn't say a word. He simply helped Donder close the windows and the door and clean the store. Afterwards, before Donder had been able to speak, Zhang Tai abruptly hugged him tightly, greatly frightening Donder. Bad boy, what are you doing? Quickly let go. I am not interested in men. Donder shouted loudly. Letting go, Zhang Tai stared at Donder with a careful and sincere look. Thank you. Without Donder's 2 gifts, he might really have died last night, thus he was really grateful to Donder. Thanks for what? Didn't you have a lot of fun the other night? How did the woman feel? Donder pretended to be calm. Feeling embarrassed, Zhang Tai scratched his head. I'm still a virgin. You didn't look for a woman last night? Donder became curious and immediately looked gossipy. I did. Zhang Tai answered honestly. You didn't do it? Halfway. Soft? Hard, very hard. What happened? Zhang Tai was embarrassed and whispered to Donder about what had happened. Ha 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 ha, the obscene fatty laughed out loudly, almost rolling on the ground. He felt so happy. After laughing for quite a while, Donder wiped the tears at the corners of his eyes and patted Zhang Tai on the shoulder. Boy, what did I teach you before? Don't be too arrogant. Otherwise, you will suffer from revenge. If you had asked me about that earlier, you could have discovered this problem in advance. It would be a shame if you died in the survival training as a virgin. I won't die that easily. Zhang Tai confidently said. Feeling the confidence from his words, Donder could not help but stare at Donder for quite a while. I came to tell you that I won't be coming for the next 2 months. Smiling, Donder waved his hand. Actually, even after the survival training, you don't need to come here. It will almost be time for you to start your new life afterwards, so there will be many things you will have to deal with. Not to mention that I've already taught you everything I can here. If you come here, you won't be able to gain any more benefits. But, if you have time, you are free to come and chat with me. On his way home after leaving Donder's grocery store, Zhang Tai suddenly felt that he had grown up a lot. That small grocery store and the 7 National Male Middle School seemed to have disappeared from his life all in a sudden. What was waiting for him was the mysterious, unknown world outside the lofty city walls. Let's see what Huck and Snade have left for me. Thinking of this, Zhang Tai sped up and ran home. As usual, it was late when he returned home. Zhang Tai pushed open the door and smelt an aroma of chicken soup. Unknown whether his mom was still angry about what had happened last night or because she didn't know what to say to Zhang Tai, when Zhang Tai returned home, his mom was in her bedroom. His father alone waited for him with a bitter look on his face. Chicken soup is in the pot. After you finish, quickly go to bed, Dad said coldly and left. All the food was in the pot. After drinking a small bowl of chicken soup and finishing washing the bowls, Zhang Tai went back to his room. The instant he returned to his room, Zhang Tai entered the castle of Black Iron. Handsome and magnificent castle lord, welcome to the castle of Black Iron. The familiar words gradually disappeared. Zhang Tai took in a deep breath and walked towards the 2 dead bodies. Ever since he had carried them in, he hadn't carefully checked them. Since only a single day has passed, their bodies hadn't begun to rot, which made Zhang Tai feel reassured. Walking over to Snade's dead body, Zhang Tai pulled the dagger out of Snade's body. Yesterday, he was worried that blood would spurt everywhere if he were to pull out the dagger from Snade's body, which would make it difficult to deal with. Since a day has gone by, blood would naturally no longer spray from the corpse. Although both Snade and Huck were jet black, they did not look frightening. The powerful rat poison really took effect too fast. Before it was even noticed, the violent toxicity had already killed them. It was so fast that not even a frightened expression was left on their faces. Huck had already closed his eyes. In contrast, Snade's eyes were still widely open, seemingly as if he still had many questions. It was you guys who wanted to kill me first, so you can't blame me for this. I just wanted to survive. Zhang Tai prayed silently while feeling terrified. After praying, he started to search through Snade's corpse first. He remembered that Snade seemed to have a purse filled with gold coins. After having seen it last night, Zhang Tai was no longer able to remove it from his mind. Chapter 62, Trouble. As expected, Snade didn't let Zhang Tai down. Just by searching Snade's coat a bit, Zhang Tai found the heavy purse that he had been dreaming about all day. Pulling it out of Snade's coat, he shook the purse twice. Hearing the sharp sound of the clashing of the coins, the pores all over Zhang Tai's body seemed to have expanded. The sound was so beautiful that Zhang Tai felt it was the most pleasant sound that he has ever heard. Compared to the sound of the clashes between the gold coins, even the elegant songs of the church choirs became as boring as the quacking of ducks. Walla! Walla! 1. Zhang Tai moved the purse close to his ear and shook it. Hearing the clashes of the gold coins, Zhang Tai became excited all over, both physically and mentally. Walla! Walla! With 2 more shakes, Zhang Tai realized that what had happened yesterday was worth it. Walla! Walla! With another 2 shakes, Zhang Tai seemed to see Miss Dana smile. Walla! Walla! With 2 more shakes, the whole world became alive. With the purse in hand, Zhang Tai looked like a slow-witted guy. As he shook the purse closely by his ear, a foolish grin crept onto his face. With 2 more shakes, he made another foolish smile. He kept repeating that boring game for 5 or 6 minutes before he finally burst out into laughter. Let me see the surprise inside the purse. Opening the purse, Zhang Tai squatted on the ground and poured out all the coins from the purse. Voila! With one sound of clashing coins, all the coins were poured onto the ground. Seeing those silver and golden rays reflected on the coins, Zhang Tai was so excited that he almost passed out. With a quivering hand, Zhang Tai picked up a gold coin and carefully took a look at it. On the front of the gold coin was a huge locomotive releasing smoke, while the back of the coin showed the symbol of the Andaman Alliance, the 17 star rings. This coin was issued by the Andaman Alliance and was called the Locomotive Gold Coin by the commoners. Ever since Zhang Tai was born, he had never touched a single gold coin, let alone owning one. Weighing the gold coin by hand, Zhang Tai was brimming with happiness. Zhang Tai became more energetic as he continued to search through Snade's body. This time, he found a leather bag that was secured close to Snade's waist. Removing its cover, Zhang Tai moved closer and took a whiff, only to smell a strange, medicinal scent. Inside the bag were various colorful vials. Unfortunately, the vials were not labeled, thus based on his current capabilities, Zhang Tai naturally didn't know what was inside. Thinking for a while, Zhang Tai put them back inside the leather bag and placed the bag back into Snade's coat. He was not interested in what was inside the vials, as those things had to be destroyed. Besides the gold coins and the leather bag, Zhang Tai found nothing else on Snade's body. However, he was already very pleased with what he had found. After searching over Snade, Zhang Tai went for Huck. There was also a purse inside Huck's coat. Seeing the purse that was as heavy as Snade's, Zhang Tai soon felt blood rushing to his head. After pouring out all the money from Huck and Snade's purses, Zhang Tai took in 2 deep breaths. He then continued to search Huck's body. This time, he found another leather bag with 4 vials of medicine used to heal wounds inside. Those medicines were produced by the Continental Pharmacists Union and were packed with their packaging and symbol. These medicines were also sold in Donder's grocery store. Opening one vial, Zhang Tai smelt it and tasted it a bit. It was of high quality. Zhang Tai found no fake substances inside. It was really difficult to buy a vial of this kind of medicine in the market, especially in the shops neighboring the railway station. As taro powder was neither harmful to humans nor easily noticed by commoners, vendors usually mix taro powder into real medicine along with additional fake substances that would compose 5 to 20% of the medicine. Zhang Tai learned the means that were always adopted by cunning businessmen from Donder's grocery store. Besides the purses, the medicine bags, and the portable equipment, nothing else was found on the 2 dead bodies. After searching their dead bodies, Zhang Tai started to search through their luggage. When he was looking for clothes inside Snade's luggage last night, he had already roughly searched through it and had found nothing that stood out, thus Zhang Tai mainly searched through Huck's luggage. Opening it, he surprisingly saw a palm-sized box. The instant he saw the box, Zhang Tai became excited because that box was specifically used to store crystals that were of level 3 or higher. Opening the box, he found 2 white and translucent double-headed pyramid-based crystals that were almost level 4 lying inside the box. Feeling his spirit rising, Zhang Tai picked up the 2 pyramid-based crystals and looked at the 2 pyramids inside. He then burst out into laughter as each of the crystals was much better than the level 3 pyramid-based crystals being treasured as top-quality pyramids in Donder's grocery store. These 2 crystals were worth at least 10 gold coins. Zhang Tai was highly spirited and felt like exclaiming towards the sky. Trembling, Zhang Tai counted the coins. In total, Huck and Snade had contributed 48 gold coins, 79 silver coins, and 34 copper coins to him, which, although was nothing to some people, was a large amount of money for Zhang Tai. This money was almost equivalent to 4 or 5 years' worth of his dad's salary. In addition to the money, he had also received 4 vials of high-quality medicines that were great for healing wounds, with only half of a vial among the 4 having been used. Moreover, Zhang Tai also got 2 top-quality level 3 pyramid-based crystals. In total, the vials of medicine and the pyramid-based crystals were worth about 18 gold coins. I'm rich. I'm really rich this time. Zhang Tai was so high-spirited that his face almost cramped. Although the 2 leather bags that contained the medicine were valuable, they had obvious signs of having been used, as there were scratches on them. If the wear and tear on the leather bags were noticed by people who were familiar with Huck and Snade, then they would inevitably realize that it belonged to them, thus Zhang Tai intended to throw the 2 leather bags away. After pouring out the items in the sundry box, Zhang Tai carefully stored the gold coins, the medicine, and the pyramid-based crystals in the sundry box. He then returned and began to drag Huck's body towards the pool of chaos, which was the best place to eliminate the evidence. The pool of chaos was about 200 m away from Zhang Tai. Considering Huck weighed over 150 kilograms, Zhang Tai gave up dragging his feet after 50 steps. Seeing that line on the soil plowed by Huck's dead body, Zhang Tai wiped the sweat from his forehead and changed his posture. He held up Huck's body and let it sit straight up on the ground before squatting against Huck's back and placing his 2 arms under the body's armpits. He then half-lifted him and dragged him away. This was much easier than his previous attempt. When faced with danger, people could actually burst out with great potential. Zhang Tai found it really difficult to drag away this body that weighed over 150 kilograms. In particular, how was he able to carry this body into the castle of black iron last night when he was so weak? Zhang Tai himself had started to be proud of what he had done. Hugging and dragging the body in such a way, Zhang Tai would inevitably cause friction between his arm and Huck's armpits. As a result, 50 m away, Zhang Tai felt a completely different feeling from the upper right arm and his upper left arm. His upper right arm that rubbed on the left armpit of Huck's body was softer. Something seemed to be patting the area under Huck's left armpit, giving off a smooth feeling when Zhang Tai dragged the body. Could there be something hidden inside? Zhang Tai put down Huck's body and searched the area around his armpits carefully. Finally, Zhang Tai found something closely hidden by Huck's left armpit under his inner armor. He found a trivial opening on his clothes that could never be found without a careful inspection. Zhang Tai then undid Huck's coat and stretched his hand into that opening. Touching a piece of smooth cloth, Zhang Tai then pulled it out directly from that small mysterious bag. Whoa, it's a red silk cloth. Mother ***, it must be very expensive. What's the purpose of carrying a piece of red cloth? To drive away evil like what Chinese people always did? Zhang Tai doubted at the first sight of the piece of red cloth. Afterwards, unfolding the piece of red silk cloth, Zhang Tai realized that it was a mask that was similar to those used by the executioners who executed criminals. A man's head could be properly covered under this mask. In addition, 2 holes on the cloth were left for eyes and some strange floral grains were embroidered on the forehead of the face mask. There was also a black and terrifying skull between the strange floral grains. Mother ***. What the hell? I've never seen such an ugly mask. The instant Zhang Tai intended to throw away this red mask, a thought flashed in his mind. A terrifying red mask like that of an executioner's. Black skull on the mask. Killing numerous people in bloody ways. Zhang Tai's face instantly turned pale. Glancing at this mask which symbolized death and blood in his hand, a few words came to Zhang Tai's mind instantly: red scarf burglar. ***T. The 15-year juvenile was frightened. Feeling weak, he sat on the ground helplessly. Apparently, this is the sound that coins make when they clash. Chapter 63, Fruit of Brilliance. 2 weeks ago when his elder brother had talked about the red scarf burglars at the dinner table, Zhang Tai felt as if he was listening to a story. To Zhang Tai, a bandit organization like the Red Scarf Burglars who instilled fear into the entire Andaman Alliance and killed numerous people had nothing to do with common families like the Zhang family. In Zhang Tai's mind, although the Red Scarf Burglars were always causing troubles within the territory of the Andaman Alliance, they lived in a completely different world. When the curfew was imposed in Black Hot City, Zhang Tai felt that his life was influenced a bit. However, he was more worried about his elder brother. He hoped that his elder brother would not encounter those butchers with blood-stained hands. The Red Scarf Burglars were infamous across the entire Andaman Alliance because of the numerous casualties caused by them. 12 years ago, the Red Scarf Burglars broke into Baroque, an emerging city, and caused the Baroque Massacre, an event feared by everyone. After the massacre, the beautiful city which had more than 100,000 citizens was wiped out. They killed every single living being they met, whether it was man or woman, old or young, and even farm animals like chickens or dogs were not spared, finally resulting in a ghost city. Those vicious Red Scarf Burglars frightened everybody. Although there were less than 1,000 Red Scarf Burglars in total, on average, each of them had killed at least 100 innocent residents in the Baroque Massacre. Every member of the Red Scarf Burglars would wear a red head cover when they took action. Besides a few members who were known by their infamous crimes, the identities of the other members were not known to the public, thus the government had not been able to arrest them. In addition, they acted in secrecy, as they would disappear soon after they finished their missions. Sometimes, they would reappear abruptly, causing people to become muddle-headed. Zhang Tai had never thought that he would be related to such a terrifying organization, let alone killing 2 of their members. Zhang Tai sat on the ground muddle-headedly for quite a while before he was able to recover his composure. Afterwards, he ran towards Snade's body and undid his coat. He found the same opening on his clothes near the region of his left armpit under the inner armor and pulled out a terrifying red head cover that was the same as the one from Huck's armpit. Mother ***, this kick is for your blindness and this kick is for my blood. You bastard, is it that cool to kill people? Thinking of how he was almost killed by the Red Scarf Burglars, his fear of the 2 bodies turned into fury and disgust as he ferociously kicked Snade's body more than 10 times. After venting, Zhang Tai felt much more relaxed. Red scarf burglars? So what? Let's see whether or not you can bite me. Pay, Zhang Tai spat onto Snade's body. Then, he dragged Snade's body by the foot towards the pool of chaos, much like dragging a dead dog. He found it much easier to deal with this body, as Snade was much lighter than Huck. After taking 2 short rests on the way there, Zhang Tai took 5 minutes to drag Snade's body to a place near the pool of chaos. Exerting all his strength, he threw the dead body into the pool of chaos, which then slowly sunk into it. Zhang Tai then turned back and spent almost 10 minutes dragging Huck's huge, dead body to a place near the pool of chaos too. After a powerful push, another red scarf burglar disappeared forever from this world. Afterwards, Zhang Tai ran back and threw all their belongings into the pool of chaos, including the bag that held the medicine, their purses, their clothes, and the box used to contain the crystals. From then on, the 2 red scarf burglars completely disappeared from this world, leaving no traces behind. Zhang Tai then became thoroughly relaxed. From now on, who would be able to link the disappearance of those 2 guys to me? He then opened the basic attributes panel of the Castle of Black Iron. Castle of Black Iron. Length, 1 krosa. Width, 1 krosa. Aura value, 328. Merit value, 2122. Basic energy storage, 43.7. Special output, void. As expected, the aura value and the basic energy storage had both increased. These past few days, as more and more seeds sprouted and grew well, the aura value also gradually increased. However, the merit value almost frightened Zhang Tai. How could it increase by more than 2,000 points? Zhang Tai instantly opened the log for merit value to check the reason. For the gods, you have carried out righteousness by killing Snade and Huck, who were part of the infamous Red Scarf burglars. You have punished evil and have spread the mercy of the gods unto the earthly world. You have found justice for the numerous people who were wronged by them. As a result, merit value has been increased by 2048. Reading this tip, Zhang Tai became moved, feeling that he did the right thing by killing these 2B** cheese. After closing the basic attributes window of the Castle of Black Iron, Zhang Tai arrived before the small tree again. He was really depressed about the leakless fruit that he had been waiting for over a week. He really wanted to see what had happened to it at that time. The leakless fruit that should have been ripe was as large as a peanut kernel. Hanging on a twig, it looked really pitiful. Zhang Tai stretched out his hand as another tip appeared. The leakless fruit has suspended its growth. After the Lord's chi and blood recovers, it will continue to grow. Zhang Tai estimated that all of his energy might be currently used to produce more blood. According to his current physical condition, it might take him a couple of days to fully recover. That was to say, the next leakless fruit would grow ripe 10 days later. F***ck. Thinking of this, Zhang Tai cursed Huck and Snade fiercely again. If it wasn't for that incident last night, he would have improved a lot since the effects of the leakless fruit were really great. He had no choice but to wait. Afterwards, Zhang Tai checked the iron body fruit. The new one seemed to have just started to grow, as the fruit was just about 1/5 mature. If he wanted to accelerate its growth, he would have to find opportunities to be fiercely beaten. When Zhang Tai turned back and prepared to leave the Castle of Black Iron, he suddenly saw something shining through the corner of his eye on the small tree. What's that? Zhang Tai moved back towards the other side of the tree. On the side opposite of the leakless fruit, he found a golden ray flashing among the leaves. After walking around half the tree, Zhang Tai stretched out his hand to move away a small leaf. Surprisingly, he found a fruit right hanging there, radiating golden rays. It was perfectly round like a ball, and the skin of the fruit looked gold with golden wisps looming within. Although it did not release a smell as fragrant as the leakless fruit and the iron body fruit, this fruit looked much more brilliant than the other 2. Seeing this fruit, Zhang Tai gaped. He truly didn't know when such a fruit had grown ripe. Although he couldn't think it through, he only had to check the tip. The instant Zhang Tai stretched out his hand towards this strange dark yellow fruit, a tip appeared. Fruit of brilliance has become ripe. Usage: pick and direct eat it. Notice, the fruit cannot be taken out of the Castle of Black Iron. After 12 hours of having been picked off the tree, its energy and vitality will gradually decline. Seemingly as if it had noticed Zhang Tai's doubts, another tip appeared above the previous one. The deteriorating glorious rays will definitely be used after the death of the sinners. The soul of the sinners shall return to the dark land, while the glorious rays of the soul shall remain. The glorious rays were a force that was granted to the soul by the Creator and should not be desecrated. The glorious rays belong to the brave men who spread the righteousness of the gods. As a brave fighter who brandished your blade against evil, you will earn glorious rays as you judge evil. The glorious rays of the soul will coexist within you, making you stronger. Zhang Tai gulped twice. Glorious rays? Force of the soul? What were those? Although Zhang Tai was confused, he definitely knew that the fruit of brilliance was something great. Additionally, the glorious rays of the soul might be some force that came from Huck and Snade. Although Zhang Tai didn't know how powerful Huck and Snade were, he could simply feel that the feeling they gave off was no less oppressive than Captain Curlin. Was some of their force within this fruit of brilliance? I'm rich, I'm really rich now. Zhang Tai's heart pounded again. Taking in 2 deep breaths, he rubbed his face with force, realizing that he was not dreaming. He then meticulously picked off this fruit of brilliance as if he were picking accessories at a jewelry store. He would definitely eat it before he recovered composure. Based on his experiences with the leakless fruit, taking this fruit carefully, Zhang Tai sat under the small tree with legs crossed. He then engulfed this fruit directly, much like how Beiji ate the human-like fruit. 1. Putting the fruit into his mouth, he then bit into it. The instant he bit into the fruit of brilliance, Zhang Tai seemed to have heard a huge sound reverberating deep in his mind. Afterwards, he fully lost consciousness. What happened after was like a dream. In the dream, he felt his body becoming translucent and weightless while a dark yellow fog swirled around a mysterious point in his mind. Afterwards, a wisp of dark yellow fog escaped from that jewel-like fruit of brilliance in his mouth. The golden fog then combined with the original fog in his mind. At the same time, a pleasure that he had never experienced before rose from the depths of Zhang Tai's soul. The pleasant feeling rising from his deepest inner heart made Zhang Tai feel unprecedentedly comfortable and peaceful. In this state, the golden fog escaped from the fruit of brilliance and constantly combined with the fog that was originally in his mind. As a result, the original fog in his mind became increasingly thicker and wider as it gradually turned brighter, changing from a dark golden color to a pure golden color. After quite a while, the transformation finally stopped. The fog that was originally in Zhang Tai's mind had already experienced huge changes, both quantitatively and qualitatively. In quantity, that fog expanded by at least 7-fold. If the original golden fog could be described as a pencil, then the current golden fog could be described as golden bamboo. In quality, besides becoming more vibrant, the fog was filled with qi that was more energetic and lively. Opening his eyes, much to his surprise, he realized the castle of black iron was different than before. The colors were more vibrant in his eyes, and his nose became much sharper. The scent of soil seemed to have become clearer, and the whole world became more splendid. Picking himself up from the ground, Zhang Tai moved his limbs. His body felt completely new, and every cell in his body seemed to be yelling out in happiness. It was truly a marvelous feeling. What happened? What was that golden fog? He then closed his eyes and opened them after a short while with a strand of shock on his face. He finally knew what the fruit of brilliance did and what the golden fog was. The golden fog was the spiritual energy in his mind. Previously, as he was too weak, he couldn't sense his spiritual energy, however, he could now sense it. The glorious rays in the soul represented spiritual energy. The fact was that the Manjusaka Karma fruit tree had exploited the spiritual energy of the 2 dead bodies and formed the fruit of brilliance with them. The fruit of brilliance was used to increase spiritual energy. As their spiritual energy was 3 times of Zhang Tai's, after consuming the fruit of brilliance, he could feel a sharp increase in his spiritual energy by 6-fold. After figuring out what had happened, Zhang Tai stared at that small tree in awe. In the past, he didn't know what other benefits having spiritual energy brought besides assisting in the ignition of the burning points, as he had rarely learned about it and had close to no opportunities to learn about it. However, after his spiritual energy was increased by 6 times, he realized he was able to cultivate much more effectively. Using the same amount of time, he could reach a much better result, otherwise, it would take him a much longer time to achieve such a result. This benefit alone had already made Zhang Tai satisfied. Moreover, with the help of the increased spiritual energy, he could sense more sharply and react much quicker. This was the best gift from the gods before the survival training even began. Here I come, survival training. Zhang Tai shouted loudly in the castle of black iron. 1. Beiji was a monk who looked like a pig from the story, A Journey in the West. The human-like fruit was a wonderful fruit in the story which was said to give immortality. Chapter 64, Human Calculator. As expected, with the rise of the prices of grains and sugar, the sales of the Zhang family's brew store also gradually declined. Although the wealthy would probably not be affected by the change of several copper or silver coins, for many at the lowest rungs of society, even a trivial increase in the price of grains or other commodities would greatly put pressure on their ability to survive. Naturally, they were more sensitive to the changes in price. Although the Zhang family had only increased the price of a bowl of rice brew by a single copper coin, to some, it was a 20% increase in price and was something that would be difficult for them to accept. Seeing the Chinese woman dragging away her kid, who kept swallowing his saliva, in the rice brew store, Zhang Tai could only force a bitter smile. In the past, this kid used to eat rice brew in their store, but due to the recently increasing price, the kid's mom had no choice but to drag him away. For commoners like them, the rising price of grains not only affected the price of a bowl of rice brew but also their overall living expenditure. Influenced by rising price of grains, the price of the other daily necessities like cooking oil and salt also increased. In addition, Zhang Tai heard that the price of coal had also started to rise in Black Hot City for the past few couple of days. Obviously, the price of a wagon full of coal balls had also increased by 5 copper coins. As the price of grains and coal increased, the price of steel produced from ironworks would also naturally increase. Although it was only a small fluctuation, it was not a good feeling for many of the commoners. The Zhang family's ugly, remodeled three-wheeler had been borrowed by a neighbor to buy grains. These past 2 days, several people had come to borrow it to transport necessities. As his sister-in-law said she was a bit uncomfortable this morning, his mom became worried and accompanied her to the hospital, leaving Zhang Tai alone at home. In the rice brew store, Zhang Tai boringly drove away the flies with a fan. Absent-minded in the rice brew store, as Zhang Tai concentrated, an interesting thought appeared in his mind. With his spiritual energy increasing by 7-fold, Zhang Tai realized that he had been painstakingly training for the past 2 weeks had greatly improved. Before yesterday, it would take him a long time to visualize an abacus with 3 columns in his mind. The image of the abacus wouldn't be steady, and he couldn't calculate quickly using it either. It wasn't even able to match the speed of just calculating manually. All in all, he could not use it to do daily calculations easily. Surprisingly, this situation has improved sharply this morning. At this moment, a golden abacus with 7 columns was suspended steadily in Zhang Tai's mind. The beads on the abacus were moving up and down automatically, outputting results. What's 36 multiplied by 98? 3,528. What's 1269 plus 9,621? 10,890. What's 362 times 125? 45,250. What's 639 divided by 12? 53.25. What's 98564 divided by 125? 788.512. In the past, Zhang Tai needed to use the abacus techniques in order to get an answer, but now, he was able to know the answer the instant he saw the question. After practicing for a while, Zhang Tai realized that he didn't need to use abacus techniques anymore. After using the abacus for 2 years, Zhang Tai finally realized how powerful and effective the time-honored calculator was. He didn't know where the book that was marked as after-class reading for preliminary students was from. However, Zhang Tai didn't believe that any preliminary school student could match him from the intensity and effect of spiritual energy. Previously, his spiritual energy might have been similar to that of a preliminary school student, but ever since his spiritual energy had combined with the fruit of brilliance, it has already become 7 times of that from before. It was much more powerful at this moment. Benefiting from the new spiritual energy, he could fully experience the powerful effects of, as he could work it out the instant he saw any calculation question within 7 digits. Additionally, Zhang Tai realized the abacus was easily stabilized after it was visualized. During this entire experience, Zhang Tai had even sold a few bowls of rice brew. I am able to calculate faster than the manual metal calculators used in trading agencies and commercial banks. Zhang Tai became excited. He never would have imagined that the sharply increased spiritual energy would help improve his skills so greatly overnight. Zhang Tai was sure that Donder would definitely be startled if he saw his improvement. As Zhang Tai felt great about using so easily, an extremely absurd thought suddenly came to mind. Maybe this was how people used the abacus in the beginning? A long time ago, people had powerful spiritual energy and could easily use this calculating tool in their mind. However, later on, their spiritual energy declined and they could barely finish calculation in their mind. Thus, someone decided to use a real object to replace the imaginary object in their mind and started to operate by hand. After another hundreds or thousands of years, when everybody was accustomed to operating an abacus by hand, a guy suddenly realized this calculator could be visualized in the mind and could replaced by visualized object. As a result, he invented which reflected the original usage of this calculator. If his assumptions were correct, then he would be the only person who could master the true usage of this calculator. Zhang Tai didn't know whether this marvelous calculator could be improved. He remembered that Donder had once told him about a powerful profession in the East called fortune-teller, which would own a calculator known as E. This calculator was not used to calculate numbers but instead the fortunes or disasters that would befall a person and the changes between the heaven and the earth. Was related to E? While Zhang Tai was pondering on this thought, his mom and sister-in-law had returned. Instantly breaking the abacus formed in his mind, he ran towards them. "Mom, what's wrong with sister-in-law?" After speaking, Zhang Tai realized that he had said a really silly question. In response to his question, the face of his sister-in-law flushed slightly, and his mom glared at him ferociously and flicked his forehead. "What matter? Go make lunch." In the afternoon, as usual, Zhang Tai helped his mom make rice brew, but this time, it was different. His sister-in-law had joined them. As a result, they finished much faster than before. After lunch, their neighbor brought back the three-wheeler, and thus Zhang Tai rode it to shop for rice and sugar. As expected, the prices had risen a bit again. Considering the poor sales of rice brew last week, he only bought 2 bags of rice this time. Returning home, Zhang Tai noticed that his mom was teaching his sister-in-law how to make liquid yeast. This liquid yeast is the key, as it determines the final taste of the rice brew. Our Zhang family makes our own liquid yeast, and we store it inside the spare jars boiling water after they have cooled down. We prepare 2 jars of rice brew, one is to be used, while the other is to be left to ferment. When 1 jar of rice brew is almost used up, we'll add some water, cut up fruits, fruit rinds, and kernels, and we'll open it every day and give it a shake to give it some fresh air. After a week, a new jar of rice brew would be ready. We usually put 2 spoons of well-fermented liquid yeast into each jar before covering the lid. Taste some, this liquid yeast is delicious. Zhang Tai used to stealthily eat it before. Zhang Tai had remembered those steps deeply in his heart. He didn't pay attention to what mom had told to his sister-in-law at the beginning, however, his mom really made him lose face in front of his sister-in-law. While listening to what his mom had said, Zhang immediately thought about something. Yeast rice brew. Mutated and evolved yeast, mutated and evolved rice brew. Zhang Tai remembered that there was an option in the Castle of Black Iron that allowed all living beings to mutate and evolve, and he had even tried it on a sprouted potato the first time he entered the Castle of Black Iron. As he hasn't seen any improvement lately, he had almost forgotten about it. Watching his mom teach his sister-in-law how to make liquid yeast, Zhang Tai had a sudden realization. If he could help mutate or evolve the yeast used to make brew, would the taste of the rice brew be improved? If so, that would help improve the sales of the Zhang family's rice brew. After thinking for a while, Zhang Tai felt this way was feasible. At the very least, he could have a try. The Zhang's family has already used the same method to make rice brew for the past 2 decades, so why not try something new? Nothing is lost even if it fails. Thinking of this, Zhang Tai became excited. In response, in the evening, he found a clean glass jar in the kitchen and stealthily filled it with half a bottle of liquid yeast. Afterwards, he took it back to his room and quickly entered the Castle of Black Iron. Opening the Living Beings and Species Management option, he chose Carbon-Based Living Beings and Species Management and then Microorganisms. After selecting that bottle of liquid yeast, he inputted 300 points of aura value, 5 points of merit value, and 0.1 point of basic energy storage and started the first evolution and mutation for the yeast. Chapter 65, Preparations before the Survival Training. On May 28, 889th year of the Black Hawk calendar, handsome and magnificent Castle Lord used 300 aura value points, 5 merit value points, and 0.1 basic energy storage point on the mutation and evolution of a bottle of yeast. Mutation and evolution is expected to be completed within 360 hours. Handsome and magnificent Castle Lord, please wait patiently. Reading this message, Zhang Tai estimated that the time consumption for evolution and mutation might be related to the life cycle of the living being. Seeing as how the yeast would become evolved and mutated after 2 weeks, Zhang Tai estimated that it would take about 2 months for the potato to evolve and mutate. Through this attempt, Zhang Tai realized one thing: there is a limit to the number of aura value points, merit value points, and basic energy storage points that a microorganism can receive. For example, with the experiment with the half bottle of liquid yeast, when he slid the 3 bars to the furthest right positions, the maximum number of aura value was 7,600 points, the maximum number of merit value was 860 points, and the maximum number for basic energy storage was 340 points. Seeing those huge numbers, Zhang Tai was greatly startled before frugally choosing to make a bearable, small investment. After leaving the castle of black iron, Zhang Tai noticed that his dad had already returned home. It was currently time for supper, and today's supper was extremely luxurious, consisting of ham and beef. In addition, his mom had made many delicious dishes that would make Zhang Tai drool. On the table, his mom kept putting food from the dishes into Zhang Tai's bowl while his dad lectured him about topics pertaining to the survival training. No matter what, remember not to act alone, especially in the evening. Am I clear? Zhang Tai nodded while chewing. Additionally, don't try to show off, his mom added aside. Mom, look at your son's slim limbs. What do I have to show off? Zhang Tai raised his voice. Hearing his words, his dad flicked his forehead with a chopstick. Your mom, of course, knows that you have nothing to show off. What she meant was that you should think twice before taking action. Out there is not like here where we're inside the city walls. There are many things out there that can take the lives of men. I know. Thinking back to how his mom looked when she gazed at the picture of his dead eldest brother, Zhang Tai swore that he would survive and return safely no matter what. At supper, like a nodding chick, Zhang Tai constantly lowered his head to eat rice under the lecturing of his mom and dad. After supper was finished, Zhang Tai brought out 3 gold coins from his pocket and pulled over his mom's hand before placing them in her hands. The 3 heavy and brilliant locomotives on the gold coins almost frightened both his dad and mom. Even his sister-in-law widely opened her eyes. His dad became mouth-gaped as he stared at the 3 gold coins before turning over to Zhang Tai. He even held one up and glanced over it carefully. Where did you get so much money? With a face full of pride, Zhang Tai replied, your son, of course, earned it at the Iron Thorns Fighting Club. There are many rich people there, so when I serve them well, those rich boys would reward me with 1 gold coin as a tip. Zhang Tai was not telling a lie. In reality, just as he said, training partners and the waiters would usually earn tips at the Iron Thorns Fighting Club. The tips would always vary from several silver coins to several gold coins. For example, girls like Mary would earn an amazing amount from tips each month. Although Zhang Tai had never received any tips, this lie of his could never be revealed. Even the fighting club wouldn't ask the guests on the 6th floor whether they had given Zhang Tai a tip. This is really too much. His mom still couldn't believe it. 3 gold coins were equivalent to a season's worth of salary for his dad. To his family, this was still a lot of money. Mom, those rich boys would spend over 10 gold coins just to buy a single pair of leather shoes. You should take a look at the prices on Bright Avenue. What there isn't astronomically priced. Although the stuff there is expensive for us, but for people like them, it isn't much. Why else do you think there are so many rich people practicing in the fighting clubs? Your son has grown up. In the future, I'll earn even more money. For the next few days, I'll be participating in the survival training. During this time, you shouldn't worry about money and should buy something good to eat. You should also buy more nutritious food for sister-in-law so that my niece or nephew will grow well in the future. You should also look after yourselves and just enjoy the benefits brought back by your sons. Hearing Zhang Tai's words, his dad and mom finally believed him. At the very least, they had heard of such things about the fighting clubs. They also knew that there were many rich people who would casually spend money in such a way that commoners like the Zhang family would definitely never be able to afford. Seeing that his mom had finally received the 3 gold coins, Zhang Tai heaved a deep sigh inwardly. From now on, he could always bring back some tip and relieve the burden on his dad and mom. Since the sales of rice brew had declined this week, they had less money to spend to improve their quality of life. Because of this, his mom and dad have also been unhappy. When his sister-in-law was going to give birth to a baby, Zhang Tai knew clearly that the increasing expenditures would add more burden to his dad and mom. Seeing his mom receive the money and the smiles on their face as if they had relieved a burden, Zhang Tai was also filled with warmth. The next day, every family member started to become busy to make preparations for Zhang Tai's survival training. The Zhang family's rice brew store was also closed on that day. A sleeping bag, portable protective leather armor, a raincoat, a helmet, an aluminum kettle, a leather belt, a knapsack, and a multi-purpose military shovel. All the things could be found at home, as they were used by Zhang Yang when he participated in the survival training, which had then been put away by his mom. Now that it was Zhang Tai's turn to participate in the survival training, his mom brought them out of the boxes, giving them to Zhang Tai to use. Many things were shared between the generations. After it was used by the elder brother, the younger brother would use it. After the younger brother, then the son. They would never be abandoned until they couldn't be used anymore. Although these goods have shown wear and tear over the years, because his mom had stored them well, when she took it out, all of it was still usable. These were also common goods that most families in Black Hot City would prepare for their kids' participation in the survival training. After drying the sleeping bag under the sun for the entire day, Zhang Tai's mom silently hid one bag of fried rice into the sleeping bag. Although the amount of food allowed to be brought was supposed to be less than 5 kilograms, as long as they didn't hide too much, the teachers would not care. His dad completely polished the leather armor with oil again and sharpened the military shovel. Afterwards, he went out to buy 4 to 5 kilograms of compressed biscuits and 1 kilogram of beef jerky for Zhang Tai. His sister-in-law hurriedly adjusted the soft cushion inside the helmet to match the size of Zhang Tai's head. She then cleaned the kettle and prepared a set of clean clothes and a needlework bag for Zhang Tai. After a day of busy work, they had finally well prepared all the necessities for Zhang Tai's participation in the survival training. The last supper at home before the survival training was also rich. Zhang Tai's dad and mom became both worried and sad. Excluding his mom, who repeatedly warned him, there were fewer words spoken at the table than before. Zhang Tai was also somewhat sad. Survival training was both a test of the ability of an adult to survive and was also the prelude of what's to come when he struggles for his survival. At the beginning of supper, everything went smoothly. However, as the dinner went on, his mom's tears began to drop into her bowl as she spoke to him. Seeing that, Zhang Tai felt too sad to eat as well. "Mom, trust me. I'll be okay." Zhang Tai had to comfort his mom. Although he didn't know how his mom felt as she prepared the equipment for her son's departure, his mom's tears immediately aroused the sadness of the entire family that had been repressed and hidden during this period of time. As the youngest son, Zhang Tai would soon leave Black Hot City. Seeing Zhang Tai's mom weeping, his dad's eyes also turned red and so did Zhang Tai's. The Last Supper ended in this way. When dusk fell, Zhang Tai went out. After passing several streets, Zhang Tai finally arrived outside a post office near the most boisterous citizens' square in the center of Black Hot City. He looked around and made sure nobody had noticed him. He then put an envelope into a mailbox outside the post office before going back home as if nothing had happened. The envelope had been previously brought back by H's elder brother and was one of the living necessities provided to the city guard army of Black Hot City. As a soldier, his elder brother would receive 2 exclusive envelopes per month, which could be sent out without pasting a stamp. In the past, his elder brother had brought back several envelopes, while the extras had been sold to the black market, which was one of the best sellers. The envelope contained the head cover of the Red Scarf Burglars and a letter that Zhang Tai had written in standard printed font. The letter would be directly sent to the headquarters of the CISF of Black Hot City. On the letter was only one line: "The Red Scarf Burglars are colluding with the Numuan business group to attack Black Hot City." For Zhang Tai, this was already the most he could do. In this conspiracy, whether it was the Red Scarf Burglars or the Numuan business group, they were both monsters to Zhang Tai and the Zhang family. To be involved in such a large-scale war, he would be trampled to death like an ant involved in a battle between a flock of elephants. Not to mention, there was still a more terrifying figure behind the two powers, the one Sneyd and Huck had referred to as Lord. The word Lord that had inadvertently escaped from Sneyd and Huck's mouth had caused Zhang Tai to feel a chill in his heart. Zhang Tai had to abandon the lucky idea to use this event to seek for maximum benefits. Chapter 66, The Lord and the Big Event. In this age, Lord was not something to be casually addressed. At the very least, nobody in Black Hot City and even the Andaman Alliance was qualified to enjoy being called as such. Even the president of the Andaman Alliance Parliament, the owner of Andaman City and the head of the Andaman family, the richest and most privileged person in the Andaman Alliance, the one who had used their family name as the name of the alliance, could only be called Your Excellency and not Lord. Actually, Zhang Tai dared not to be involved in this event, but due to his disgust towards the Red Scarf burglars and his commitment to the city after 8 years of compulsory education, he finally chose to send a warning to the ruler of the city. That was the best he could do. As for whether the letter would cause an uproar or be thrown into the trash can, Zhang Tai didn't think it was his concern anymore. In the worst-case scenario, the city would change its ruler. The Red Scarf burglars were only a tool used by a big figure, they would not become the ruler of the city. Small figures were better off minding their own business. For Zhang Tai, he felt that what he should be most concerned about was the survival training that begins tomorrow. The other matters weren't a big concern. A peaceful night soon passed. When he got up the next morning, he found out that his mom and dad had already gotten up. Mom's eyes turned slightly red and swollen. She had long prepared a scrumptious breakfast for Zhang Tai while his dad was checking his belongings again and again. Eat more. Only after eating will you have enough strength to finish the long trip. With his head lowered the entire time, Zhang Tai washed his face, brushed his teeth, and ate breakfast. Feeling depressed, he wore his protective leather armor, buckled his belt, and carried his luggage that contained the folded military shovel inside with the help of his dad and mom. Putting on a helmet, he hung the sword gifted by his dad on one side of his waist along with a kettle and hung the spearhead of his pike on the other. Additionally, the dagger gifted by his elder brother was also fixed onto the belt. Standing, Zhang Tai shook twice to make sure everything had been prepared well. Although he was carrying more than 20 kilograms of goods, Zhang Tai could still move freely. Forcing a smile, he said, "Dad, Mom, it's fine. I'll be leaving now. You don't need to worry about me, I'll be okay." "Guagua, hold on." Before Zhang Tai left, his mom stopped him. With tears dropping down, his mom helped him arrange his leather belt and luggage once again. Pulling at the corner of Zhang Tai's clothes, she said in a low voice, "If you can, remember to come back soon. Don't try to show off." "I got it, Mom." Zhang Tai felt like he was about to cry. If he did not leave soon, he would lose face in front of his mom and dad. Taking in a deep breath, Zhang Tai forcefully hugged his mom and dad. He then lowered his head and turned around. Pulling open the door, he strode out the house where he had received warmth for the past 15 years. The moment he closed the door, Zhang Tai heard the sound of his mom weeping. It was still dark outside as several stars hung in the sky. After wiping his tears, Zhang Tai strode towards school. At about 100 m away, Zhang Tai suddenly felt something. Turning his head, Zhang Tai saw his mom and dad, hand in hand, watching him under the first rays of the morning sun. Waving his hand at them, Zhang Tai couldn't help but shed some tears. On the dawn of this day, such scenes could be seen throughout Black Hot City. A young boy, who would soon be at the age where they would be adults and have to part from home, leaving home with luggage carried on his back and a weapon in hand, and seeing him off would be his parents as they stood by the doorway, crying. Without the protection of the city walls, they alone would encounter many difficulties and challenges in this age. Every year, in Black Hot City, there were teenagers that would never be able to return home again. For some, this was a departure that meant life and death. On the way, Zhang Tai met many teenagers like him walking towards school as they carried luggage on their backs and weapons in their hands. When Zhang Tai arrived at school, he found more than half of the undergraduates had already arrived and were resting on the training grounds. According to the plan, they were to leave at 7:30 a.m., thus many of the horny students had already been prepared and had arrived at the training ground before 7 a.m. Besides the uniformed luggage, they were each equipped with various equipment. Noisily, those horny students formed into many small groups according to the usual training regions on the training ground. Hearing the noise, Zhang Tai no longer felt sad. The moment he arrived, Zhang Tai saw Baghdad and Sharwin, who had arrived earlier than him. Looking at the huge axe hanging on Baghdad's shoulder, Zhang Tai then glanced at his own sword. He was really shocked from the difference, becoming speechless. On the training ground, Baghdad's style was absolutely masculine and eye-catching. With only a half-body shoulder armor on his naked upper body, the muscles under his dark skin were revealed. The armor was only used to protect his right shoulder and heart, and a shiny axe weighing at least 30 kilograms was hung on his shoulder armor, giving off quite a cool appearance. In contrast, like Zhang Tai, Sharwin looked much more average: a luggage, a leather armor, a belt, a kettle, and a sword. Zhang Tai felt something was wrong with Sharwin's equipment, as they were too old and heavily worn. Take Sharwan's short sword as an example. The sheath showed signs of cracks and the sword within could even be seen. In addition, that leather armor was obviously smaller than Sharwan's figure, and as for the aluminum kettle, Zhang Tai swore that he has never seen a padded military kettle like this one before. Although he knew Sharwan's family was poor, he still could not believe his eyes. That was too excessive. Zhang Tai had already cursed Sharwan's dad dozens of times inside. Standing beside Baghdad, Sharwan felt embarrassed as he lowered his head and cleaned his fingernails. At the same time, Baghdad cursed resentfully. Your dad is too much. How could he give you such poor equipment? Given the money you have made for your family during the past years, you could already get what you need. Take a look at that so-called sword. It's already heavily rusted. It's only shiny because it had been polished on the knife grinder at the cost of its thickness and length. It won't function well since both the blade and the body of the sword had been ground too thin. This is too much. When we return, we must go to your house and teach him a lesson. Forget it. I still have several younger brothers, so my dad might not have been able to save too much money for me. To already have this, I'm already content, Sharwan explained weakly, looking dejected and sad. Seeing Sharwan's sad mood, Zhang Tai gloomily walked towards him. He said nothing as he directly pulled out the sword from Sharwan's waist. Looking at that sword, Zhang Tai was instantly filled with rage. It really was like what Baghdad had said. Can you really call this a Mother**King sword? It was simply a thin iron sheet. Holding it, Zhang Tai felt it was very unstable. Pits the size of rice could be seen everywhere on the blade due to it being heavily rusted. After grinding it, although it looked a bit shiny, it became much thinner than before, mostly because it was heavily rusted. It felt extremely light in Zhang Tai's hand. One would have to slash quickly and fiercely even to kill a chicken, let alone those dangerous living beings outside the city walls. Zhang Tai immediately undid his own sword and gave it to Sharwan. Take mine. No need, no need. I can use this. Sharwan hurriedly refused him, intending to retrieve his sword. Saying nothing, Zhang Tai threw Sharwan's sword onto the ground, directly breaking it into two halves. Seeing the two pieces of his broken sword, Sharwan's face turned pale. Saying nothing else, he bit his own lips tightly and looked even more dejected. Zhang Tai patted Sharwan's shoulder and the dagger on his waist. Trust me, just use mine. I still have a dagger. In addition, I also have a spearhead. Once I find a wooden stick and attach it, I would have a complete spear. With my spear and dagger, us 7 brothers will definitely succeed this survival training. Sharwan finally nodded. Unknown to what he had seen, his eyes were widely looking at something behind Zhang Tai. Hearing the chaos behind him, Zhang Tai turned back and saw Fatty Barley walking towards them with a huge luggage on his back like a tortoise. The huge luggage and his equipment had caused the commotion. Compared to Sharwan's poor equipment, Fatty Barley's equipment was the very definition of nouveau riche. Chapter 67, starting off. Every undergraduate opened their luggage and placed it before their feet, waiting for the inspection of the coaches and Captain Curlin. Besides 5 kilograms of food, some undergraduate had also hidden some in their luggage. Using Zhang Tai as an example, his mom had prepared some fried rice for him and had hidden it in the inner layer of his luggage. If wasn't too excessive, the coaches and teachers would not punish them for it. Of course, if anyone brought too much food, the surplus food had to be handed in, and at the same time, the coach or teacher in front of him would give him a stern look. If such a thing were to occur, it would perhaps not be worth it to bring so much food. Based on the experiences of their predecessors, all the horny students understood the bottom line: they could not secretly bring more than 1 kilogram of food, which was basically 1 day's worth of food. If anyone exceeded this amount, then they would be punished. Soon after their luggage were checked, Captain Curlin sent his order, set off. Hearing his order, those horny students shouldered their luggage and walked out of the school in lines in their respective class towards the west gate of Black Hot City. It was only when they had walked out the school gates did the students from the lower grades arrive at school. With a complex look in their eyes, they stood on both sides of the school gates as they saw off the undergraduates equipped with weapons. For the kids from commoner families in Black Hot City, none of them would be able to avoid participating in the survival training. It was their destiny, and it was the destiny of everyone in this age. For humans to expand their living domain, they relied on sending out young men from the school gates every year despite the fact that some would lose their lives. Little brothers, work hard. Next year, it will be your turn. Some guy at the front loudly shouted. Unfortunately, only a few people responded, as his words had made them depressed. Remaining silent, Zhang Tai moved on along with the others. Compared to when he had first arrived at school, his luggage had become heavier. The most obvious change was the black pot covering his luggage. All the other members of the Hit Plane Brotherhood were shouldering more goods than when they had arrived at school. Everything extra they had been carrying was something that Fatty Barley brought. In regards to the huge pot, Fatty Barley only had one reason: if they could drink soup, they would have 1/3 more choices to choose from for food, and they could also reduce their food consumption by 1/4 while being able to recover their physiques a bit faster. The reason Fatty Barley gave was convincing and persuasive, thus Zhang Tai shook his head and carried the ridiculously huge black pot along with his luggage. Ever since the morning, he had been carrying the black pot. For some unknown reason, perhaps due to superstition in the eastern countries, Zhang Tai faintly felt that he would encounter troubles during this survival training. Before he had left, he had noticed a vicious glare from Sharon, who was standing beside Glaze. Thinking of how low-key Glaze's group has been acting these days, Zhang Tai felt as if something bad would happen to him. In fact, they actually didn't need to bring a pot. If they wanted to drink soup, they could simply use their own helmets or food container, which was what most people did. Zhang Tai had also suggested this, however. Fatty Barley gave him a mysterious smile as he told Zhang Tai that he would know the advantages of the pot when they arrived. Therefore, Zhang Tai set off with that huge black pot on his back. It was such a big pot that even Captain Curlin gave it a look a few times. However, the black pot paled in comparison to the killing machine known as the Iron Gate T-21, a light, complex pulley-based crossbow used by professionals, that hung on Doug's shoulder. Although it was lighter than other crossbows, it was 1 m in length and weighed 30 kilograms before having been loaded with arrows. As all the important parts of the Iron Gate T-21 were made of a special alloy, it looked like a huge steel kite on Doug's back, making it really eye-catching. While carrying the Iron Gate T-21 that was not too heavy around his shoulder, Doug gave off an arrogant air, causing Baghdad's eyes to turn green with envy. The Iron Gate was also brought by Fatty. Compared with Sharwin's miserable treatment, Barley's dad had really paid an exorbitant amount for the survival training. From what Zhang Tai knew, an Iron Gate T-21 was worth at least 15 gold coins since it had to be made from a special, high-performance alloy. It was not possible to produce the crossbow in Black Hot City. Only Kalar of the Andaman Alliance, known as the City of Machines, was able to produce the series of long-range weapons which the Iron Gate belonged to. While Doug carried the Iron Gate T-21, Sharwin and Leet carried 2 arrow containers. Each cross-arrow container contained 80 standard, steel armor-piercing arrows and 2 clips, too. In addition, Baghdad also helped Fatty carry a steel pike that could be assembled, while Hista was carrying a professional outdoor bag for Fatty. Zhang Tai was really speechless about Barley, as there were still a lot of things on him. This time, Zhang Tai knew clearly how afraid of death Fatty Barley was. When they were setting off school, the first morning rays cast down in Black Hot City. Walking on the street, the tidy footsteps aroused the attention of all the passers-by. Seeing these young men leaving the city, some kind-hearted, middle-aged women would stop walking and would start to pray with clasped hands. In addition, pastors and priests from the Church of the Brilliance God had long prepared to spray holy water over each horny student on the roadside. Children, God will bless you. Use your machetes and spears to deal with those beasts outside the city walls. Go and spray the glorious rays of humankind in those remote places. The believers of God will definitely return safely, shouted the big-bellied nun. Zhang Tai's clothes and face had also been sprayed with several droplets. The Brilliance God was worshipped by the Sun Dynasty, a country that had unified both state and church. The school of the Brilliance God covered every nook and cranny of that country. It was said that all the government officials in that country were assumed by clergymen. In the Sun Dynasty, government officials owned the sovereign powers. However, they didn't refer to themselves as government officials and had even forbade others from calling them that. Instead, they preferred to be called the most pious servants. In Barley's words, they were just a group of bastards that wanted to erect memorial archways, for themselves. That priest is obviously obsessed with alcohol and women. Those young nuns beside him are not virgins. Passing by that bastard who was spraying holy water, Hista, the obscene guy, lowered his voice and told Zhang Tai, seeing the look in the nuns' eyes and their eyebrows, I can tell that the 2 nuns had just made love with someone an hour ago and are still fascinated even now. Mother * curs, do they really think we're still virgins? You could even see this? Zhang Tai was really startled. Of course, if you spend as much time as I have on women, you can also easily tell whether they have just made love through looking, tasting, smelling, and touching. Let alone the eyes, I can even tell just by using my tongue, Hista replied pleasantly. How do you identify it by tongue? Zhang Tai doubted. If you have kissed them, you will be able to find that women having made love always have a cold tongue tip, Hista answered confidently. Hearing Hista's words, Zhang Tai immediately became self-abased and speechless. Zhang Tai and the other horny students walked across half of Black Hot City. On the way, they had encountered several groups from other schools. After some greetings, they would head to their own destinations. There were more than 10,000 undergraduates in Black Hot City. Naturally, not all of them would go to Wild Wolf Valley for their survival training. Instead, they would scatter to areas 50 to 80 kilometers away from Black Hot City. After special inspection, the difficulty in those areas used for survival training did not vary too much, thus every year, representatives of the schools would choose the place for survival training by drawing lots. This year, the 7th National Male Middle School drew the Wild Wolf Valley, which was neither too bad nor too good. Generally speaking, the closer it was to Black Hot City, the less dangerous it would be. As Wild Wolf Valley was 70 kilometers away from Black Hot City, it was neither too dangerous nor too safe. When Zhang Tai and his team passed by the municipal square, Zhang Tai glanced at that mailbox one last time before forcing himself to forget about it. 20 minutes later at 8 a.m., the team arrived at the west gate of Black Hot City and soon left Black Hot City through the gate. While passing through the dim city gates, Zhang Tai really felt like he was drilling through a mouse den. Inside the tunnel of the gate that spanned 50 m, it was so dim that lamps had to be lit inside during the day. Leaving Black Hot City, the horny students were really shocked by the magnificent Black Hot mountain ranges which were twisting like huge dragons in front of their eyes. The scene made them breathless. On average, the mountains were taller than 10,000 m, and at the top of the mountains were snow-white lines. Several huge shadows of eagles hovering in the sky brought them a sense of desolation. 1. Carrying a black pot means shouldering the blame for others. 2. An arrow has to be put inside a clip before being shot out. 3. Memorial Archway is a symbol of humble behaviors and good popularity. Chapter 68, The Beginning of the Survival Training. Wild Wolf Valley was only about 70 kilometers west of Black Hot City. If they brought nothing with them, it would not be difficult for Zhang Tai and the other students of 7th National Male Middle School to arrive there during the day, although they would have to expend some effort. However, as each of them was carrying tens of kilograms of luggage on their backs, it was undoubtedly a huge struggle for everyone. The scenery outside the city walls was completely different from that within the walls. Within the areas 10 kilometers away from the city walls, they were able to see patches of farmlands and the farmers working in the fields. There were watchtowers set at a specific distance between each other. These watchtowers had two functions. The first function was to send warnings, and the second function was to provide refuge for the farmers in the event that they suffer an attack from any dangerous living beings at any point in time. 1 kilometer away from the city, they passed the first farming town. Compared to the high city walls that were about 30 m high in Black Hot City, the walls in that farming town were only about 5 m in height. It looked extremely easy to destroy, as a height of 5 m was not much of an obstacle for many magical beasts and dangerous living beings. The small town covered less than 1 square kilometer, as the farmlands were outside the walls. In the daytime, many farmers would work in the field. Seeing those students, many of them stopped their work. "Which school are you from?" an uncle that was about 30 years of age standing in the wheat field asked. 7th National Male Middle School, someone replied. Ha, ha. I graduated from 10th National Male Middle School. Guys, kill more beasts for us. Lately, there has been more and more demon beasts outside the city walls. We will come back alive. Remember not to excrete your bowel in the woods, the farmer shouted. What? Don't expose your bare butts in the air. King Lunatic, hearing the farmer's words, that students cursed as he caught up to the team. Seeing that farmer, whose skin had turned black under the sun, Zhang Tai was moved and then kept his words in mind. The farther the towns and villages were from Black Hot City, the smaller they would be and the lower the walls would be. Finally, when they were 10 kilometers away from Black Hot City, they saw the last town, which was only surrounded by a wooden fence that was about 3 m in height. As they passed this town, they suddenly heard the continuous urgent ringing of bells drifting from a wooden watch tower in the field outside the town. Hearing the ringing of the bells, the farmers hurriedly dropped their tools and ran inside the town. At the same time, a team of fully armored people mounted on horses rushed out. "Defend your positions!" Captain Kurland shouted as he instantly rushed out with a spear in hand like a galloping war horse. It was only at that moment that the students from the 7th Male Middle School realized how powerful Captain Kurland was. "Oh my God, Captain Kurland's speed is at least 20 m/s," all the horny students shouted as they kept their eyes on Captain Kurland. Only a few breaths had passed, yet Captain Kurland was already 100 m away from the group. Soon, they saw a huge totem of a bloody scorpion rising up from behind Captain Kurland. "Battle Chi. That is Captain Kurland's battle chi. Captain Kurland is a bloody scorpion fighter," more horny students shouted. At the same time, Captain Kurland jumped directly from the ground like a hawk as he threw his spear like a bolt of lightning. The heroic gesture of Captain Kurland made everybody fascinated. Even many years later, Zhang Tai would still be able to remember that man who was flying like an eagle in the air as he threw his spear. The moment the spear was thrown, the shrilling sound of breaking wind drifted from far away along with the miserable shriek from a beast. Afterwards, everything returned back to normal. The group then marched on again. After walking 200 m, all the horny students were able to see the results of Captain Kurland's spear, a LV5 mutated magical beast, a colorful leopard, that was almost 2 m in length without including its tail was nailed onto one side of the road by the spear when it had drilled out from the woods. About 3 feet of the spear had entered the ground, meaning half of it was buried. Captain Kurland said a few words to the soldiers rushing out from the town, then he turned around and pulled the spear out from the magical beast. Afterwards, he led those horny students back on the way again. When Captain Kurland returned to the group after killing that magical beast, he had already become the hero in the heart of every one of the horny students. No matter how terrible that one-eyed man was at school, he really made people reassured outside the city walls. With its body and its blood, the colorful leopard reminded the passers-by that this was just the beginning. "Did you guys hear the screeching sound drifting from the air when Captain Kurland threw his spear?" Baghdad asked the other members of the Hit Plane Brotherhood. Zhang Tai and the others nodded. "No crap, anyone could hear that." Fatty Barley answered weakly. "I have never expected that one-eyed guy to be that powerful. You guys didn't understand what I meant." Baghdad scratched his face, as he didn't know how to express his thoughts. "I meant, what's the reason of that shrieking sound?" "Very good, very powerful," Doug replied foolishly, which directly won him a contemptuous glare from Baghdad. "Do you mean that attack was special?" Leet rolled his eyes as he asked. "Of course, I'm guessing that attack was a sonic boom." "What do you mean by sonic boom?" Sharwin asked curiously. "I've heard about sonic boom at the fighting club. It means when the attacks of those great fighters can reach a speed faster than 340 meters per second, which is the speed of sound transmission. Once they reach that speed, they would break an invisible barrier called the sound barrier. Afterwards, a huge shrieking sound of breaking air could be heard. This is called sonic boom, a symbol of great fighters." "You mean?" Barley stared at Baghdad in a look of amazement. "Right. I felt like the moment it left Captain Kurland's hand, the spear was already faster than 340 meters per second. We heard the shrieking sound of air breaking when it moved faster than the sound transmission speed." While explaining, Baghdad, with an admiring look, looked at the huge shadow of the one-eyed man who stood at the forefront of the team. "Captain Kurland is truly a very powerful man. Is it that difficult to reach the speed of sound?" Zhang Tai asked curiously. "Yes, very difficult." Baghdad nodded his head. "I have heard that there are powerful bowmen who are able to make use of super heavy war bows that could shoot arrows out at a speed that's faster than the speed of sound. But there are less than 50 such people in the entire Black Hot City. Anyone who could reach the speed of sound using a super heavy fighting bow would immediately be awarded the rank of a second lieutenant and would be able to enjoy its respective treatment." The military of Black Hot City had long had a dream to build a sonic boom matrix that utilized super heavy fighting bows to launch long-distance attacks alongside the 3 top pikemen matrices, but unfortunately, they have failed even after so many years. From this, you should be able to tell how valuable this skill is. Earlier, Captain Kurland was able to achieve this by throwing his spear, which is even more difficult than using a fighting bow. Hearing Baghdad's explanation, everyone else understood how valuable the sonic boom skill was as they idolized Captain Kurland. After those horny students from the 7th National Male Middle School had trekked about 30 kilometers, they finally arrived at their resting point as they heavily panted, feeling like tortoises with the luggage on their backs. They were at the westernmost railway station that was nearby the Glang Iron Mine northwest of Black Hawk City. Passing that railway station, the rails would gradually extend towards the Glang Iron Mine in the north. The trains that commuted between Black Hawk City and Glang Iron Mine were responsible for the transportation of goods and as well as commuting between the two locations. As the iron ores from the mines supported the prosperity of Black Hawk City, the trains would transport them to the steelmaking mills in Black Hawk City every day. Glang Iron Mine, which contained more than 6 billion tons of iron ores, was the largest iron mine in the Andaman Alliance and was even ranked third in the entire Blackson Human Clan corridor. Half of Black Hawk City was established by this super iron mine. Taking a rest nearby the railway station, Zhang Tai and the others saw their companions, those horny students from the 2nd National Male Middle School, arriving 20 minutes later. Following them, the next to arrive was the 4th National Female Middle School and the 11th National Female Middle School. Seeing the charming female students, all the horny male students turned to stone as they drooled. Chapter 69, A Disgusting and Terrifying Thing. Zhang Tai was also attracted by those female students as they poured out of the railway station. Ever since he was born, he had never once seen so many enchanting female students. Before those female students drew close, with the help of a breeze, the various fragrances from those girls carried by the breeze had already excited the horny students so much that they began to growl. Wherever the female students went, they would always cause those horny male students to jump up from the ground as if they had been possessed by ghosts. Making cool gestures, they raised their chests and gazed at those female students who were passing by. Under the gazes of those horny male students, the female students arrogantly raised their heads like peacocks. At the front of the line were several solemn female teachers and coaches who were glancing at those horny male students on the roadside with a stern look. Behind the female teachers and coaches, some of the female students kept looking ahead, while the others bashfully stared at those foolish guys. In total, there were more than 1,000 female students from those two national female schools, causing Zhang Tai to be dazed. So huge, hearing that inharmonious voice, Zhang Tai turned around, only to see Hista drooling uncontrollably as his eyes were fixed on a female student with an excellent figure. That girl was tall and plump. She had short red hair and wore a delicate, close-fitting leather armor that made the features of her elegant figure stand out. At the sight of that female student, Zhang Tai was immediately attracted by her plump breasts and forcefully swallowed his saliva. Zhang Tai didn't know whether she had heard Hista's remark or had noticed Zhang Tai and Hista's rude gaze, but as she suddenly turned her delicate face around, she shot a furious gaze at the two. Because of that conspicuous black pot on Zhang Tai's back, she could not help but give him another fierce glare. "Christine, what happened?" a slightly petite girl beside the red-haired female student asked her. "Nothing, I just saw a boring guy with a black pot on his back," the sexy red-haired female student replied. "Take care of yourself. The teachers have warned us that those male students are dirty rascals. Although we still have to complete our survival training in conjunction with them and may need their help, we still need to keep a distance from them. If they are too close to you, they might do something disgusting and terrifying." "I know, Shirley. If anyone dares to do something disgusting to me, I will use this to castrate him," the red-haired female ferociously said as she patted the short sword on her back. In her mind, the image of the guy carrying the black pot flashed through her mind. The distant Zhang Tai suddenly felt an inexplicable chill. "I have heard that those male students only need to remember how you look. Even if they're not near you, they would think about doing disgusting and terrifying things to you." "Ah? That is so disgusting." The female student called Christine was so frightened that she suddenly turned pale. "Shirley, what should we do then?" "I also don't know. Let's hope they don't remember you." After meeting those cute female students in the westernmost railway station of Black Hawk City, all the horny students immediately became highly spirited. The male students didn't want to lose face in front of those female students, and neither did the female students want to lose face in front of those horny male students. Hence, during the remaining 40 kilometers journey, the male students from the two national male middle schools competed with each other, while the female students from the two national female middle schools gritted their teeth and tried not to give off a weak appearance. After leaving that railway station, they saw fewer and fewer people, and the roads became narrower. The roads were covered with weeds, and the nearby trees and plants were much taller and were lusher. In addition, there were more and more sounds of various insects, birds, and other animals. Gradually, they entered the twisting hills neighboring the Black Hawk mountain range. Continuing on this path, after traveling for an hour, they would take a 15-minute break. Finally, before the sun had set, they saw a huge, magnificent castle at the top of a mountain 1 kilometer away from them. The setting sun was cast onto the castle, which caused the castle to give off a rose-golden color, making people feel as if it was a kingdom from a fairy tale. Wild Wolf Castle! We have arrived, someone shouted. Everyone then began cheering. Plucking up their courage, they surged towards that castle. 10 minutes later, some of the faster guys had already arrived at the foot of the castle, after which more and more people arrived. Carrying his heavy luggage, Zhang Tai was neither fast nor slow. He entered the Wild Wolf Castle together with the majority of the students from the 7th National Male Middle School. Afterwards, everyone was shocked by the Wild Wolf Castle and the Wild Wolf Valley which it protected. The castle's appearance was a typical Western castle, and it occupied the highest point on the mountain. It comprised of 2 parts, an internal castle and an external castle. Standing in the granite square outside the castle, Zhang Tai raised his head and could only see the tall wall of the external castle that was 30 m in height. Within the wall, there was an arrow tower as well as some other powerful city defense equipment. Standing in the square in front of the castle, the instant Zhang Tai moved his gaze from the castle to the Wild Wolf Valley beneath it, he was able to see the entire Wild Wolf Valley. At dusk, Wild Wolf Valley was more or less quite dim. It was an irregular, trumpet-shaped valley that was more than 30 kilometers in length, and had many intersecting mountain ridges and hills. What left an impression on Zhang Tai the most was the exaggerated number of caves on the hills and mountains that surrounded the entire valley. Some of them looked similar to abandoned mines, while nobody knew how the other caves came into being. There were many of those strange caves everywhere. Zhang Tai didn't know why, but when he looked at those weird caves, Zhang Tai felt that something was weird about Wild Wolf Valley. Wild Wolf Castle rightly occupied an important spot on the eastern side of the trumpet-shaped Wild Wolf Valley. This was where the numerous horny students would show off their survival skills in the coming 2 months. Standing at the top of the mountain, Zhang Tai sucked in a deep breath and muttered, "At least I can breathe quality air here." More than 10 minutes after those male students had arrived, the female students from the 2 national female middle schools also arrived. Different from those horny students, all the female students entered the castle while chatting with each other. Less than 10 minutes after the female students had entered the castle, a company of soldiers safeguarding the castle orderly departed from the castle as they rode on their war horses, soon disappearing behind the mountain. When the teachers and coaches were counting the number of students from each school, Zhang Tai and the other members of the Hit Plane Brotherhood occupied a patch of land in the square outside the castle as they unloaded their luggage. Sitting on the ground in a fatigued manner, they rubbed their swollen shoulders and numb legs. 20 years ago, this was the westernmost war castle of Black Hot City. Nowadays, the westernmost war castle of Black Hot City has been pushed to the one that occupied the point 200 kilometers west of Black Hot City, thus this Wild Wolf Castle has gradually lost its uses. Only a company worth of soldiers would be dispatched here to perform maintenance on the war castle, and they had just left. Now, the right to use this war castle has been transferred to these schools. If only we could sleep in the castle tonight. There are more than 1,000 female students. They must be lonely over there. Hista, the rascal, said admiringly as he stared at those narrow, shiny windows. If you castrate yourself, you might be able to enter. There is not even a single man inside the inner castle of Wild Wolf Castle. Even the male teachers and coaches of the 2 national male middle schools are forbidden to enter. I heard those female teachers and coaches from the 2 female national middle schools are old, abnormal virgins. In Black Hot City, once any man made a mistake, they could only *ck beauties in their dreams for the rest of their lives. Leet said emotionlessly as he shrugged his shoulders. Hearing Leet's words, all the other members of the Hit Plane Brotherhood felt a chill at their crotches and drew their legs closer. Hadn't something happened during the past survival trainings? Hista doubted. I don't believe that with so many beauties in front of us, that the other men would be gentlemen like us. Yes, there were some incidents, however, those horny guys all died in the end. How could that be possible? During the survival training, the teachers and coaches would act in accordance with the decree that's sent out during times of war by the Andaman Alliance, so you should know how they would treat people who violate the rules. Hearing Leet's words, Hista started to touch his neck. Later on, when all the horny students were resting in the square, the teachers and coaches began to tell the rules to the horny students and thus verifying what Barley and Leet had said. Firstly, all the horny students were allowed to sleep in the square of Wild Wolf Castle tonight, but none of them were allowed to be sleeping here when the first rays of the sun shone tomorrow. Afterwards, they are expected to stay in Wild Wolf Valley. This square will be used to do trading, form teams, organize activities, and accept missions. The square will be open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day. Secondly, from now on, they will have act according to the wartime decree of the Andaman Alliance. Any dispute will be dealt with accordingly. Teachers from the 4 school have already formed a temporary committee that will supervise them. The committee will ensure the successful completion of the survival training and will also execute the wartime decree during the duration of the survival training. Thirdly, the toilets in the external castle are open for all the horny students tonight. Nobody is allowed to casually expel their waste. Anyone who is caught dirtying the areas of Wild Wolf Castle would suffer a miserable punishment once caught. 2 hours later, when it became completely dark outside, fires were lit from several huge fire baskets. Those horny students had already spread their own sleeping bags on the square. After eating some food and going to the toilet, they felt too fatigued and soon fell asleep. Zhang Tai hid himself in the sleeping bag in the smooth, granite square. Hearing those growls from the wild wolves in the Wild Wolf Valley, he trembled and could not sleep well throughout the night. Chapter 70, Wild Wolf Valley. Wake up, Big Head. We're setting off. Due to his poor qi and blood, Zhang Tai's biological clock had been delayed for the past couple of days. The next morning, Fatty Barley woke up Zhang Tai by shaking him. Opening his eyes, Zhang Tai realized it was almost dawn, as the last star was still hanging in the eastern parts of the sky. After spending an entire night sleeping on a sturdy stone, Zhang Tai felt a tinge of pain on the back of his head. Seeing that both Fatty Barley and Doug had already awoken, Zhang Tai also hurriedly climbed out of his sleeping bag and started to pack his luggage. The day had not broken yet, however, the horny students in the square had already woken up one by one and were preparing for the upcoming survival training. I've noticed that more than 10 groups have already left. It's our turn now, Fatty Barley said as he arranged his luggage. Did you wake up early? Rolling up his sleeping bag, Zhang Tai asked Barley. Of course, I woke up early. Afterwards, I began to count the number of groups that had left. Those guys will find a path for us, and we will follow them. It won't be good if we're too early or too late. This fatty is truly cunning, Zhang Tai admired inwardly. But it's really reassuring to have him as a brother. Picking himself up from the ground, Zhang Tai glanced at where Glaze's group had stayed last night. As he predicted, the 4 people had already disappeared. It seemed that they had already climbed down the mountain a long time ago. As this survival training was the final chance for Glaze, he might be more anxious than anyone else to perform well. The 7 members of the Hit Plane Brother arranged their luggage quickly and then followed the over 10 groups that had departed earlier from the square outside Wild Wolf Castle. Leading to the valley below was a 200 m long path paved with broken stones from the square. Walking along the path that twisted around the mountain, they entered the valley. 2 other groups walked alongside the members of the Hit Plane Brotherhood before splitting up with them at the bottom of the mountain. From this point on, they had become opponents to the other groups, as there were limited inhabitable places and resources in the valley that could only be gained through luck and fighting. On the first day of the survival training, everyone's first test was to search for a suitable place to stay. In the wild, a proper place to stay had to meet the following 3 conditions. First, it had to be close to a clean water source. Second, it had to be sufficiently safe. Third, it had to be in a place that was convenient for them to gather enough food in the future. Although they could feel safe and would be close to a clean water source if they stayed near the castle, it would be difficult to gather enough food. Based on the experiences of those from the previous years, most people chose to stay about 1 to 7 kilometers away from the castle, though some arrogant people or groups with many members would choose a place a bit farther to stay. With an axe in hand, Baghdad cleared the path before them as Doug, Barley, and Zhang Tai followed. Hista and Sharwin followed behind Zhang Tai, and Leet stayed at the end of the line. Everybody held their weapons and entered the valley cautiously. They couldn't be careless here because just as they walked down the path, Doug had stepped into a pile of feces from some unknown beast, who seemed to have left it here last night. When Doug cursed loudly, they all felt a chill in their hearts. They once again reminded themselves that this was Wild Wolf Valley and not Black Hot City. After walking for 200 m in the valley, Sharwin found a waterleaf willow. He then picked up several willow twigs and distributed them to the other members of the Hit Plane Brotherhood. They then chewed the willow twigs for the water inside the twigs, using it to wash their mouths. In the wild, they had to be frugal. As it was early in the morning, the temperature in the valley was still a bit low. The valley was still covered with a thin layer of fog, and dew was still on the leaves of the trees and in the grass. After walking for a while, a small portion of their clothes had gotten wet. The goo-goo-goo sound from some unknown birds on the trees reverberated from far away. The valley then gradually became quiet. After traveling less than 500 m since they entered the valley, they encountered their first wolf. When Baghdad was waving the huge axe to clear the path, a wolf that had been resting in the grass 20 m away suddenly stood up. After staring at them, it immediately turned back and disappeared into the woods before they could respond. The sight of the wolf naturally made everybody tightly grip their weapons. After walking another 1 kilometer, they found a crystal stream with a width of more than 5 meters. The river was so translucent that they could even clearly see the cobblestones and the water weeds at the bottom, as well as a shoal of small fish that was swimming happily among the water weeds. I suggest we go deep into the valley along the river. It would be great if we could find an inhabitable place along the river, Baghdad uttered. Fine. Everybody agreed. Thus, they descended into the valley along the river. After another 1 kilometer, they passed by an abandoned mine. Surrounding that mine were several caves in the mountains nearby. The two groups that had arrived earlier had already occupied 2 of those caves. Seeing the huge and perfectly round caves in the precipices and the ridges, Doug asked curiously, how could there be so many strange caves in the precipices? I heard that there used to be gold-eating boas who would twist over there in the past and would bore holes for themselves, but later on, they were exterminated by humans. As a result, those holes were left, Sharwin said. Caves of gold-eating boas? Doug asked surprisingly. Seeing those round caves in the precipices and the ridges whose diameters varied from 1 m to 3 m, Zhang Tai forcefully swallowed his saliva. He tried to imagine how large those gold-eating boas would be if those caves were the size of the gold-eating boas. At this thought, Zhang Tai's legs felt weak, and he felt despair when he looked at those pitch-black holes. Of course, you didn't know that? Sharwin asked curiously. How did you know? Turning pale, Lead asked Sharwin. I read about it from the local chronicles of Black Hot City, Sharwin said without any hesitation. I remember that these gold-eating boas from the Wild Wolf Valley were recorded in the local chronicles of Black Hot City more than 30 years ago. It was said that these gold-eating boas were as old as 1,000 years. At that time, in order to eliminate them, the whole Blackson human clan corridor had to take action, and numerous high-level fighters arrived from all directions. With the cooperation between the armies and the numerous high-level fighters, they were finally able to kill them all. After that, Black Hot City found an iron mine and a high-quality crystal mine. Tens of years later, nowadays, the crystal mine has almost been completely depleted and became useless. In contrast, the iron mine was completely deserted when the Glang iron mine was discovered. They had transferred the personnel over to the Glang iron mine due to this mine being more costly and producing lower-quality iron ores, thus this iron mine was gradually abandoned. After the gold-eating boas were killed, the population of the wild wolves sharply increased. Seeing so many wild wolves here, they named this place as the Wild Wolf Valley. Naturally, nobody in the Hit Plain Brotherhood, with the exception of Sharwin, would be bored enough to read the local chronicles of Black Hot City. Although this event had happened more than 30 years ago, it was still terrifying to them even now. What if they didn't kill them all and had left a small one, Doug muttered. With the sound of Gulu, everybody forcefully swallowed their saliva. Looking at those mountain caves once again, they dared not to live inside them anymore. I think we're better off not going too deep into the valley. If we can't find a suitable place to stay after another 2 kilometers, we should turn back, Fatty Barley immediately suggested with a solemn look. Everybody hurriedly nodded, and even Baghdad didn't object. Thinking of how this place used to be teeming with huge snakes and monsters that were as long as 100 m and could even eat the stones before them, everyone had an inexplicable feeling about Wild Wolf Valley. After searching for about 4 hours, the 7 members of the Hit Plain Brotherhood finally found a place that was about 5 kilometers away from Wild Wolf Castle. There was a dragon claw tree with a diameter of more than 10 m near the small woods. Unknown whether or not this was a mutated species, this dragon claw tree that was covered in lumps was the largest one they had ever seen. Its height was greater than 50 m, and at the top of the tree was a cloud-like crown, which covered several mu of land. Previously, seeing the tree, they had wanted to take a rest over there, but they ended up finding a hollow cave on the tree that was 4 m away from the ground. Climbing onto the tree, Baghdad took a peep inside and surprisingly found that the inside of the hollow cave was very spacious and could easily hold 3 people. What was more marvelous was that someone had once lived inside. This should have been the living place of someone who had previously attended the survival training. Everybody then became excited. Each of them climbed onto the tree to peep inside. Fortunately, they found another natural hollow cave, which was much smaller than the first one and could only hold 1 person, 7 m above the ground on the same tree. Even with the 2 hollow caves, the dragon claw tree still looked very green. However, the wood inside the tree had already become completely rotten. It seemed as if it had been struck by lightning, as one could easily grab some wood scraps from the inside of the hollow cave. Why not renovate it into a place that could hold the 7 of us? Leet's words made everybody spirited. It could already hold 4 people and it did not seem difficult to further renovate it, thus everyone immediately started to work. The renovation was composed of 2 steps. The first step was to expand the space of the 2 hollow caves as much as possible. The lower cave should be able to hold 4 people, their equipment, and food, while the upper cave should be expanded as much as possible. If it was expanded to be as large as the lower cave, then it would be able to hold another 3 people and they would all be able to live inside. After expanding the inner space of the 2 tree caves, they would arrive at the second step of renovation, breaking through the 2 hollow caves by leaving an N-shaped path between them. At least 2 or 3 people could sleep in the N-shaped space, so they would not feel cramped inside the caves. As they had learned some preliminary carpenter's skills at school and didn't need to make it nice-looking and delicate, they could easily do this kind of work. Baghdad waved his axe together while Zhang Tai and Leet used their multi-purpose military shovels. With wood scraps flying everywhere, it only took them over 2 hours to finish the work on the lower hollow cave. Seeing those wood scraps inside the hollow caves, Barley shouted, "Ah, don't throw them away. These dried wood scraps can be used as firewood. We will not have to worry about lacking firewood for the next couple of weeks." Everybody burst out into laughter.